How's everybody today? Good. Well, I'm sure somebody's going to ask me, is it an advantage or a disadvantage to have a bye week? And I don't know the answer to that. I know that the focus for us was on improvement as a team, try to make corrections, meet with every individual player about what they could do to, improve their individual performance, which would, hopefully improve, how your unit becomes more effective because of each individual doing a better job on a consistent basis. In a lot of cases, we got that done. In some cases, maybe we didn't. It also is an opportunity to try to, get players that have injury issues, healed up, a little bit. And I think from that standpoint, we probably were successful. I think D. White will be the only guy that is limited, in practice today. And we will be day to day with him. Hopefully he'll be able to practice some more toward the end of the week and may be able to play, some role, in this game. But Blake was able to throw the ball toward the end of the week. Last week we had him on kind of a pitch count. Feels a lot better, now. So we feel like, he's okay and will be ready to practice and be ready to go. So, I think when you're playing teams like Ole Miss, especially when you're playing on the road in the SEC, there are a lot of, huge challenges. First of all, playing on the road itself, game management, noise, all those kinds of things are going to be a real challenge for us. But the biggest challenge is going to be, their team and the quality of their team. And I think the things that they do as a team are going to be real challenges for us. So preparation is really, really important in a game like this, because, you got to do a good job on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday so that you can go there, feel confident that you can execute, because that will be the most important thing, is how we execute. They do a lot of multiples of things on offense in terms of formations, how they utilize players. So our players have to do a good job of preparing for that so that we can go there and be able to execute. Their defense is really, really aggressive and very fast. Best defensive team we played, all year. This is the best team we played all year. But their defense is especially quick, run well, good pressure team, up front. They got a ball-hawking secondary who has, picked off a lot of passes. Some of it's created by the pressure in the scheme, and some of it the quality of players that they have. But, Bo Wallace's third-year starter has done a really, really good job of executing their offense, knows where he's going to go with the ball, what he's going to do with it. They do a really good job with their no-huddle pace of play in terms of being able to run the plays that they want to run based on the looks that they get. Treadwell is a really, really good receiver. Offensive line is much better than it's been in the past, and certainly very capable of whether it's running the ball or pass protection. But they play well on special teams, and this team plays really, really hard, plays with a lot of passion, and they have played extremely well in their first 4 games of the year as a team total, and offense, defense, and special teams. So this is going to be a very challenging game for us.
Coach, you talked earlier about Eddie Jackson and getting him back on the field. Has he done that? Is he 100% good to go at this point in the secondary?
We worked Eddie quite a bit last week. I think he's getting there. We're certainly going to give him more opportunities in practice this week and, see where that goes. Tony Brown played pretty well, in the game. So, those two guys will probably compete through the course of the week, and we'll, sort of see how it ends up later in the week based on how they perform and how they're able to perform relative to their physical circumstances.
I know it's an accomplishment and a challenge to win the SEC West any year, but is that especially true this year, that you have to play well every single SEC West matchup to have a chance?
Well, I think that it's always been that way to some degree. Certainly this year is even more so in terms of the quality of the teams. And I think the teams that can play with consistency and continue to improve throughout the season are going to be the guys that have the best chance to play with the kind of consistency that you're going to have to play with in our division to be able to have success week in and week out. Certainly got to take them one game at a time. It's a maturity thing a little bit to be able to prepare every week for a game, understanding the importance of that game. I mean, and if you just look at scores, Tampa Bay gets beat 56 to whatever by, the Falcons, and then they come back the next week and beat somebody else. Well, what is that? It's mindset, it's preparation, it's getting ready to play. It's the other team having the right respect for the importance of playing with consistency. I mean, it happens in college football. USC wins, Boston College beats them, Boston College loses to Colorado State. So, there's a consistency in performance that has to come from a lot of maturity from the players on your team in terms of what the importance of preparation is and how that enables you to play your best and play your game, when the time comes on Saturday.
You mentioned Bo Wallace as a third-year starting quarterback. I'm just wondering, with you just having a third-year starting quarterback last year, what are some of the advantages that a coach can do with that quarterback, and what have you seen in that?
Well, I think that, first of all, the experience that guys gain from playing that position, obviously their leadership, the guy's a really good competitor, is important to the entire team, but his ability to execute his position based on his experience probably minimizes a lot of bad plays, which makes them, much more effective, makes him much more effective. And they've made a lot of explosive plays on teams, throwing the ball down the field. They've got great play action passes, and they've done a really good job. He's done a really good job. Bo has done a very good job of executing those things. So I just think the experience is something that, you can instill. It's something that you have to go through and learn, and it's a tremendous advantage.
I wanted to ask about Jarek Williams and how he progressed last week coming back from the injury, and also Dominic Jackson. Where is he at in his development?
Well, both those guys are, coming along, and I think physically, able to do what we need them to do. But the very things that we're talking about, when guys miss significant amount of time of practice, just because they're healthy doesn't mean that they're immediately ready to play. So they have to go through a little bit of a developmental phase from a technique standpoint, from a knowledge and experience standpoint, to sort of get back on track so that they can execute the way they need to play winning football, and that's what we're trying to get those guys to be able to work through.
It's easy to look at the players that Ole Miss has on defense and tell why they're having success, but what are they doing schematically that's aiding that?
Well, I think that, first of all, their quickness is really a tremendous advantage and has given us problems in the past. And they do a lot of movements and a lot of stunts up front. They've got some really good pass rush guys, so they, number 10 does a great job off the edge, usually plays into the boundary, they have a lot of experience. I think they have 9 starters back on defense, so they do a really good job of executing their scheme, and without getting technical, they do a good job of trying to take away what you want to do based on their scheme. And they've been very, very effective doing that, but it still goes back to their quickness, the stunts, the way they can pressure you, and they do a good job of, disguising things in the back end and mixing it up, making it more difficult for the quarterback.
Nick, I was wondering about your increased pace of play offensively and how it has affected you defensively, schemes if it has, or rotationally having to have more guys prepared to play at all with your increased pace of play offensively.
Well, I think we've played more guys, especially up front, in the defensive line. I'd like to get to where we can play more guys at more positions, whether it be linebacker, DB, or whatever. And it seems like we haven't had the continuity at those positions to be able to do that to this point. This would be a good week for us to be able to do it because of their pace of play. But I think, one of the things that has helped us defensively, even though every team that we've played to this point has been a no-huddle team, some go faster than others, is that we've been able to control the ball offensively. And that's going to be a challenge, for us against this team, because they create a lot of negative plays with, again, their quickness up front. They're stunning, they're moving, penetrating. So it's going to be really important that we can minimize those so that we can, control the football on offense. That's been the biggest thing that's helped us defensively.
I know you talked a lot in the preseason about Blake Sims and how his teammates respond to him, and he's well-liked in the locker room through the first few games. Have you seen that kind of respect grow at all for Blake among his teammates, and Blake also becoming a leader as well?
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. I think if you watch the games, you sort of see that. But, I think our offensive team has responded to whatever quarterback has been in the game. But I do think that there's a chemistry there, that Blake's been around these guys for a long time. They know him well. He's performed well. I think their confidence in him has gone up. And I think that, when your leaders on your team are good people and they play effectively, I think it enhances their ability and capacity to affect other people, which is what leadership is all about. So I think that's been good. Now, some of the things I've talked about before, from a game management standpoint, from a penalty standpoint, too many negative plays, self-inflicted, that part of what we do on offense, we have to all contribute to doing better.
What kinds of things can you do to get a first-year quarterback ready for his first road start, and what do you want to see from Blake this week?
Well, we don't want to see anything different from him this week than every week. We want to see him be well prepared for what he needs to do. I think the big thing about playing on the road that you have to deal with is, the noise factor offensively, in terms of being able to manage, the game. Silent count, those types of things, a little different. We practiced it when we played, in Atlanta in the first game. Did it some in the game, didn't have to do it the whole time in the game because that really wasn't truly a away game, neutral site game. So I think that's the biggest challenges, and, we got to create some of those situations in practice so the players have to learn how to communicate, and that we can execute, with the noise not affecting us.
You mentioned Ole Miss's explosiveness, throwing it down the field. Wanted to ask you about Laquon Treadwell and what kind of matchup problems he presents.
Well, he's obviously, to me, an outstanding player. He's got really good size. He's a really good athlete. He's got a big catch radius. He can get in and out of breaks. He plays with a lot of toughness, very physical blocker. So he's the complete package when it comes to size, speed, athleticism, and toughness, in a receiver. So this guy is, the way they play their receivers right and left most of the time. So you kind of know where he's going to be. You don't know necessarily what the formation is going to be, but you got a pretty good idea where he's going to be. But it really makes it hard to put, You know, we went through this last year in a couple games where we tried to put a guy on a guy, you know, in a game of no huddle. And it really is difficult for the corners to get lined up. So you really can't. I think whoever's on him is going to have to study him and play him and try to play him well and keep him cut off. And, you know, we're just going to have to execute and do what we do better than they do what they do. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. And he's an outstanding player, and that's a difficult task.
I wonder what you thought of Adam Griffith so far, and also how does he handle the mindset of a kicker, the mental part, forgetting misses, and the work ethic, that part of it?
You know, Griff's really good in terms of, you know, he's pretty even keel. He's not real emotional about, you know, he really can, you know, to me, a kicker is a lot like, I don't know, a lot of people play golf, you know, your golf swing, you know, you sort of got to stay in a rhythm, and, you know, if you get out of that rhythm, you start hooking it or slicing it or whatever. Well, I think it's very similar for a kicker, and I think he has a pretty good disposition about, you know, these are my benchmarks, these are the important things, this is what I have to do to execute. And when he gets out of that a little bit, he gets right back to trying to correct it and doesn't go haywire. And, you know, the other thing he seems to do is be able to stay in the right place. You know, one of the things that I see happening a lot with kickers and punters is it's never good enough, kind of like golfers. You know, if you're hitting at 280, you want to hit at 300. You know, you see these guys, they're number one in the world, they go change their golf swing. I don't get that. All right, but that's what they do. Well, that's the mindset of being a perfectionist and always wanting to strive to be better. And, you know, I think when it comes to specialists, punters and kickers, you know, sometimes good enough is good enough. You know, if you're punting at 45 yards with a good hang time, that's what we need. That's what we need. We don't need you to tinker around to try to make it 50. All right, and same thing with kicking. You know, you're hitting the ball consistently. You're not going to make every one, but, you know, this is what we need. And Griff seems to be able to stay in that place, you know, pretty well. All right, thank you.